Arya. Initiating vapor bath. It is time to wake up now.
I'm Vegeta, the strongest Saiyan in the universe. I'm invincible.
Hi guys, this is Not a Cat. How are you? Welcome to the channel. I don't post a lot, but when I do, a comprehensive Vegeta analysis isn't off the cards apparently. Today we'll be examining how Vegeta evolves in the Dragon Ball Z anime adaptation out of the rigid antagonist role he is first given to become perhaps Dragon Ball's most complex protagonist. Specifically, I'll be using the Funimation remastered dub, as Christopher Sabat did such a stellar job in this remaster.
Blast it! It can't be true!
It's a great lens through which to explore this enduringly fascinating character. The Vegeta we know at the end of Dragon Ball Z is a far cry from the one-dimensional villain we meet way back in the Saiyan arc, a character so callous that he kills his own ally for not being strong enough.
Thanks a lot, Vegeta. Die!
By the time he sacrifices himself in the Buu Saga, the climactic triumph in his internal battle between good and evil, he's been on a long and complicated journey from villain to hero. Or villain to anti-hero, if you like, although what is an anti-hero if not an actually psychologically believably human hero? It's a non-linear journey, and it's not always one he even wants to be on, but that's what makes his struggle so compellingly relatable. After all, self-improvement is supposed to be hard. It often entails giving up parts of ourselves which, however malicious, we've grown attached to in one way or another. This psychological complexity is arguably a big part of why Vegeta is almost as popular as Goku. After all, Goku, being canonically pure of heart, is too morally perfect for the audience to really relate to. We can look up to him, but we can't realistically aspire to be him. Being good comes easily to Goku, whereas Vegeta has to consciously strive to cultivate his own humanity. Rarely in shonen do we see a character go through such a tumultuous and prolonged journey of personal growth. And I want to look at an early stage of that journey, the Namek, Ginyu, and Frieza sagas, where we see Vegeta's villain status at times in full swing, and at other times cracking to reveal a more complicated person, and indeed his hero potential, underneath. A couple of notes here. First, I'll be using the words saga and arc the way Funimation do. The arcs are overarching, sweeping stories, and the sagas are the stages within those arcs. Namek, Ginyu, and then Frieza is a nice 3-act structure that makes the slow burn of the Frieza arc a bit easier to timeline in my mind, so that's the way we're gonna do it. The Namek Saga is particularly long, so this video will be part 1 of 2, the second of which will examine the Ginyu and Frieza sagas. Now, I don't claim to know Toriyama or Toei's intentions when it comes to this character, of course. Toriyama prized entertainment over teaching a heavy-handed moral lesson, and as a lover of popular media and its escapist qualities, I couldn't respect this more. However, I also believe that the more entertaining a story is, the greater longevity and pathos its ruminations on humanity can have. This is especially true for explorations of parts of the human condition we all have drastically unique experiences of despite their universality, such as growth and self-actualization, which Dragon Ball Z has in bucket loads. And what better place to start examining how well this is handled than through a character who we go from finding morally reprehensible to redeemable in a very real way. A character who we see, slowly but surely, becoming human. We often use the word humanity figuratively to infer traits which make up the quote-unquote good side of human nature. Kindness, altruism, and humility. Remind you of anyone? But it can also refer to the human race as a species, and we are more than just our good traits. This gets more complicated if we think about the fact that Vegeta and Goku are not humans, but part of a proud, violent alien race who are predisposed to some of the traits we don't see as humane, traits we would usually associate with a tyrannical villain. Vegeta is a real, unadulterated personification of this archetype and of his race. When he's introduced in the Saiyan arc, we see him casually munching on the arm of someone he's killed, establishing his barbaric nature. Yes, this is a canon moment, and one of Vegeta's less defendable ones, as there probably were fruits, animals, or grubs around that he could have eaten instead. From this shot alone, we understand that while he is humanoid, his morals and behaviours are not compatible with human society. Not yet. Goku, on the other hand, is compatible with human society from an early age, due to some socialization help from a young Bulma, and personality changes sustained from a head injury. One could even argue that while this injury gave Goku his humanity, it also stripped him of some key characteristics of his race. Goku even loses his tail during his formative years on Earth, rendering him pretty human-looking by the time he's an adult, so he has minimal problems fitting in. Vegeta's tail is removed as well, but in a more humiliating context. Goku's is removed permanently during training under Kami, a friend, and Vegeta's is severed during a defeat on Earth. Either way, comparing Goku and Vegeta in terms of who's a better person never strikes me as fair because Goku got a bit of a head start. Get it? And so he sees himself as a veritable Earthling even after Raditz tells him about his origins.
My name is Goku, and I live here!
Vegeta, meanwhile, has to wrestle with adopting these human traits and decide as he goes which ones to keep and which ones to toss aside. At the start of the Namek Saga, Vegeta is gravely injured, having been defeated at the end of the Saiyan Saga, but spared at the last minute by lovely Goku. Interestingly, Goku is also out of action at the start of this arc, leaving a hero-shaped hole in the plot, as he habitually does, until the very end of the Namek Saga. As it takes him much longer to heal and get to Namek than Vegeta does, our attention is very much on Vegeta. In fact, Vegeta gets main character level screen time in this saga. While performing this role as a kind of ersatz Goku stand-in, Vegeta displays an array of traits usually associated with a shonen protagonist. Most significantly, he shows drive and determination against overwhelming odds, tackling Frieza's henchmen mostly without fear and openly stating his motives to defeat his former boss, despite the fact that Frieza is much more powerful than him. In a hero, this kind of unwavering self-belief is called bravery. In a villain, it's called arrogance. Vegeta's motives for stopping Frieza do become increasingly altruistic throughout the arc, but more on that later. What's true throughout Goku's absence is that Vegeta acting as the new antagonist's main opponent prevents the narrative from losing momentum and gives the viewer a driving force to watch. Indeed, Vegeta has more control over the plot than Bulma, Krillin and Gohan do. They arrive on Namek at the same time as him, but none of them are in a position to oppose him, let alone Frieza. Saiyans get stronger after battle, humans don't, so Krillin doesn't have much of a chance. And Gohan is just a child, so there's a real feeling that if anyone's going to beat Frieza to the punch, it's Vegeta, not these guys, who spend much of their time on Namek just hiding and trying to survive. Krillin suggests just giving up several times, and they even go on a boring filler quest where they're on the wrong planet for a while, but let's not go there. With Krillin, Gohan and Bulma as the only supporting protagonists around, Vegeta is Frieza's biggest obstacle. He even secures a Dragon Ball before they do, and he's fun to watch. He's aloof and well-spoken, a hangover from his royal upbringing, and yet extremely scrappy and strong-willed. These supposedly contrasting characteristics lend him a strange charisma despite his shortcomings, prompting the audience to be interested in him as a person and what he's capable of outside of his role as a simple villain for Goku to defeat. Vegeta's entry to the saga is comparable to Piccolo's in the Saiyan saga, as Piccolo too was spared by Goku at the end of his role as primary antagonist. However, that was an easier forgiveness for the audience to swallow. After all, killing Piccolo would have meant killing Kami, and Goku wasn't a father at that point with a family to protect. Forgiving Vegeta, in contrast, feels a lot more counterintuitive, as displayed by Krillin's consternation, one of Krillin's roles being to illustrate the everyman reaction to whatever crazy thing is going on in the show at the time.
Show him what it means to be merciful. Merciful?
But as Goku says, if someone as evil as Piccolo can change, anyone can. And, like Krillin, we have no choice but to trust that Goku as the hero is tapped into a greater understanding of how to bring about a good conclusion in the end. Now, I have to say, Goku's reasons for sparing Vegeta in the manga are much more explicitly tied to his Saiyan nature. He thinks that Vegeta is such a wonderful fighter, he wants the chance to spar with him again. Either way, it's a pretty dumbfounding decision for the human viewer. And thanks to that decision, Vegeta enters the Namek Saga with a chance at moral rebirth. Not that he takes it, of course. That rebirth is forced upon him much later in the Frieza arc.
How did I get back here? It's impossible.
For now, he can't recognize, let alone appreciate, the major act of humanity he's been on the receiving end of. So he's back to plotting and scheming. He heads off in his space pod to heal up, with the Dragon Balls in mind, but also wanting to have a rematch with Goku. This latter motivation quickly takes a back seat, however, when he hears that Frieza has also heard about the Dragon Balls. And as Frieza is implied to be an even greater evil, we know from off the bat that Vegeta and our heroes are going to share a common goal.
Alright, Frieza, I'm coming for you!
Subtly laying the groundwork for him becoming a hero himself. Again, this parallels Piccolo's transition to supporting protagonist, his antagonist role fading as a new, bigger foe appears. But for a character as headstrong as Vegeta, this typical shonen villain to hero pipeline isn't going to be straightforward whatsoever. Vegeta and Frieza don't meet face to face for a good while. However, we glean some key insights into how he's been treated over the years while working under him from the Frieza Force's dialogue. Most significantly, they make a considerable number of racially charged remarks, comparing Saiyans to apes.
Miserable Saiyan monkeys.
I don't think you'll have to worry about seeing that monkey-tailed abomination again.
Considering that Frieza is a tyrant, driven by an avarice that leads him to habitually destroying or enslaving whole races, it feels a little silly to focus on his language, but these lines do successfully establish something important about Vegeta. He has spent his formative years being subjected to a slew of remarks about not only his own worthlessness, but the worthlessness of his race. It's not until later on that we learn the length and breadth of what Vegeta suffered under Frieza, but the way his colleagues and boss talk about him speaks volumes. It's quite understandable, if you think about it, that Vegeta would bolster his own pride as a form of self-defense, and even project those comments on his own worthlessness onto others in order to regain some sense of agency and control in a world that's been unkind to him. For instance, he makes some telling remarks to Kui, then to Dodoria, the first two Frieza henchmen he kills on Namek, calling them cowards.
Why, Dodoria? If I didn't know better, I'd think you were scared or something. Stop blabbering like a pathetic fool, Kui. Your cowardice makes me sick.
Clearly, Vegeta hates those he perceives as weaker than him, just as he hates his past self for not being able to break free until now, for being afraid. His pent-up rage and drive for retribution are particularly palpable when he mocks Kui for leading a cozy life under Frieza, while Vegeta and his fellow Saiyans were used for combat.
Idiot! Do you really believe that you can keep up with my experience in battle? I'm constantly fighting on the front lines. I've been to the brink of death and back again. Meanwhile, you've been hiding behind the shield of Frieza, growing soft!
This is a great line, highlighting that Vegeta has made even his own exploitation into a source of pride, as, after all, it's made him physically stronger. And the Zenkai boost after his defeat on Earth has made him stronger still, bringing his power level up to 24,000, a considerable jump from his known level under Frieza of 18,000. Despite this power-up, defying Frieza is still an astronomical risk, but it's a risk he's willing to take for freedom. This quest for liberation is shown not only through Vegeta's dialogue, but through his changing appearance. For instance, while talking to Dodoria, he discards his Frieza Force Scouter, an iconic part of his design in the Saiyan saga, for good. It always struck me as strange that Vegeta kept his Scouter for a while after deciding to defy Frieza. After all, he learns how to read power levels without it down on Earth, so on Namek it isn't any use to him. But then again, he has used it for so long that it's become part of his own modus operandi. And when we use tech so continuously as part of our daily lives to survive, especially if it's attached to us, it becomes an extension of us. Therefore, in crushing his Scouter, he crushes part of himself.
I've outgrown these silly toys.
And it's appropriate, I think, that he does so during this encounter, as it's Dodoria who reveals that Vegeta's planet was actually destroyed by Frieza, who killed off the Saiyans due to fear of their strength, then covered up the slaughter, blaming Vegeta's race's demise on a meteor. All the more reason to sever himself from Frieza for good. Additionally, just on an aesthetic level, I'd argue that the Scouter made more sense as part of his design when we'd only seen the tech on him, Raditz, and Nappa. It was a defining part of their faction's overall look. So when we learn it's something shared across the Frieza Force, it ceases to be as visually distinctive. In abandoning this shared visual identifier, Vegeta further separates himself from his former allegiance, both practically and symbolically. But what about the broader strokes of his design, like his clothes? Parts of Vegeta's Frieza Force armor actually deteriorate and fall off after he's defeated by Zarbon. This is another really nice metaphorical representation of his detethering from Frieza. His armor continues to be worn down throughout the saga, and remains so until after teaming up with the Earthlings when he steals new battlesuits for himself, Gohan, and Krillin. Interestingly, he gives them a model with the shoulder pads ubiquitous among the Frieza Force, and himself a more basic suit with no shoulder protection, making himself look like his own faction separate from anyone else. We also see Vegeta becoming more muscular in this arc, and his physical height seems to have been raised slightly since the Saiyan saga to about 5'4", pushing him towards a more hero-like and Goku-like build. If Vegeta's singular goal on Namek were to just get the Dragon Balls and wish for immortality, he wouldn't make for compelling viewing. In exploring a deeper psychological desire for basic human needs like freedom and autonomy, both narratively and visually, the show actually invites us to sympathize with him, even though he is still very much a threat to the protagonist at the start of this arc, and even takes a detour to try and settle the score with Krillin and co when he learns they're on Namek too. We hear a lot of Vegeta's thoughts at this point of the story, sometimes as an inner monologue and sometimes as actual speech.
Perhaps it was a mistake to destroy the Scouter before I'd fully tested my ability. My powers have grown to exceed even my own expectations. Too bad Kakarot and his friends can't be here to see them. But then again, maybe not.
Considering that this kind of window into a character's stream of consciousness is usually reserved for the hero or some other character whose opinions and feelings we're invited to share, I'd argue this is another effective technique the show uses to treat Vegeta like a protagonist in Goku's absence. The question of how far we can even think of rooting for Vegeta soon becomes more muddied though. He comes across an untouched Namekian village, which means he's found a Dragon Ball, and has no problem killing for it, which he does before securing what he wants and hiding the Dragon Ball in a lake where Frieza can't find it. Pretty sick backflip notwithstanding, Vegeta's slaughter of the Namekian village is definitely one of the worst crimes we witness from him, as the Namekians are consistently portrayed as peace-loving people who care for the planet, their culture, and each other. Things are, all in all, going quite well for Vegeta here, with only one Dragon Ball left unaccounted for. But if the audience is to have a chance at siding with him, after what we've just witnessed, we have to see him atone for what he's just done. A little narrative punishment is definitely due. And sure enough, Vegeta soon seeks out a foe he cannot best.
And he's alone. Perfect.
This is Zarbon, a handsome alien dude with the ability to transform and raise his power level to 34,000. Vegeta isn't aware of this ability, however, Zarbon's base power level being 23,000 should give him more pause than it does. Indeed, Vegeta's intense pride truly slips into hubris here as he actively seeks out Zarbon and challenges him to a fight. Hubris, i.e. excessive pride which blinds one's judgment, is a word you'll be familiar with if you were ever forced to study Shakespeare. And Vegeta is a lot like a Shakespearean tragic hero. His hubris is his tragic flaw, and it leads to his death or near death on more than one occasion. But just as Vegeta is not a pure villain, he is not a classic tragic hero either, and his personality is larger than his hubris. As the Namek Saga unfolds, we spend more and more time with him, and we discover that his pride is intertwined with that underlying desire for independence we talked about before. His hubris and his disdain for his former life are both evident in his conversation with Zarbon.
You're a fool. You should know better than to disobey Frieza. Yes, so I've heard. But unlike you, I've never been suited to the life of a mindless follower. I'm through cowering before Frieza like a dog.
As these lines suggest, a core belief driving Vegeta's rebellion is thus: unless he is looking after his interests and his interests alone, he is not free. I'd argue that this belief, in fact, is the reason he goes on to have a harder time emotionally than Piccolo does in becoming a Z-fighter and accepting a role as one of Goku's supporting heroes. After all, being a hero in Dragon Ball basically means working with Goku. And if you're Vegeta, someone who sees power as the main hierarchical denominator, working with Goku is synonymous with working under him. Back to the fight with Zarbon, Vegeta loses this one pretty badly. He talks a lot of big talk about being through with cowering like a dog and wanting Frieza to grovel at his feet, revealing even his final goal of becoming immortal. He also makes a good start physically, deflecting a huge attack. But by hero and villain standards, as we've established, things have been going a little too well for him. Zarbon transforms and the battle is his. We're given lots of shots here of Zarbon's face filling the screen, highlighting his size and overwhelming might, to emphasize just how badly the tides have now turned against Vegeta's favour. Meanwhile, we're shown Goku now training at 50 times gravity. This will increase to 200 times gravity by the time he arrives on Namek. It's nice when Vegeta's combat is intercut with Goku's training in space, highlighting the parallels between these two characters despite their supposedly opposing roles as hero and villain. After all, for a Saiyan, training and combat are one and the same. I mentioned earlier that Goku plays a very passive role in this saga. However, the frequent sequences of him pushing past his limits to get stronger in order to save his friends help us remember his significance. Even when he's not there, he plays a vital role as a figure of hope that Gohan and co can cling to while they wait, even if the situation they're in is pretty dire. For example, when Bulma asks Gohan how he can be so calm, he says, "It's easy. I know everything's going to be okay when my dad gets here." The hope Goku continues to provide as his ship draws closer illuminates the philosophical contrast in Vegeta and Goku's respective paths to power. Vegeta, while heroic in a sense, fighting against the odds with no one by his side to help him, is still in the business of conquering others. Goku too has been getting stronger, but not against an opponent. Therefore, he is in the much more noble business of conquering himself. These parallel quests for power will both prove narratively useful, however. Conquering oneself is more admirable, maybe, but conquering others when someone like Frieza needs to be stopped immediately is more practical.
It's not too late for you to leave this planet. Your choice. But if I were you, I'd get out of here.
Don't be a fool, Kakarot! He's destroyed more men than you can count!
And the narrative does need both. Even with the hope of Goku's imminent arrival, things somehow feel much more dire with Vegeta out of action after being defeated by Zarbon. And this is with Krillin managing to obtain both a Dragon Ball and a power-up from Guru. In fact, when the time comes later for Gohan and Krillin to use their new powers in battle, they only manage to secure a victory and escape alive at all thanks to Vegeta's help. Thankfully for the viewer, Vegeta is soon shown to be alive and kicking, and he wastes no time in promising to exact his revenge.
All you've done has made me stronger. And when I heal, I'm coming for you. I'll come for you and Frieza both.
And when he does heal up, courtesy of the Frieza Force who want to extort information from him, his resolve hasn't been hurt at all. Like a true up-and-coming hero, he chooses pride and motivation over wallowing in his defeat. This is established immediately when Apul's taunts, in the anime and the manga, are what prompt him to wake up and burst out of the healing tub. There is something cathartic about watching a character be beaten so badly only to get back up on his feet with no hesitation. The viewer can wonder at that self-belief the same way we can wonder at Goku's strength and goodness. And the show really runs with this now as we see Vegeta escape his captors with confidence and flair.
Like you could ever find me.
But not before stealing Frieza's frankly poorly hidden Dragon Balls.
Oh, Frieza, you're so overconfident in your abilities that you've left even your precious Dragon Balls unguarded. Well, I assure you, it will be your last mistake.
Love Sabat's villainous delivery here. And I love the irony in Vegeta's comment here too, an irony that he himself fails to see. Here we are laughing at Frieza for being overconfident and leaving the Dragon Balls just lying around, when Vegeta has been shown to land himself in hot water due to arrogance too. And he doesn't have an army to back him up when things go wrong. That being said, we've been encouraged to almost celebrate Vegeta's arrogance in moments like this, and he has been rewarded narratively for his overconfidence against Zarbon, as it was arguably easier to steal the Dragon Balls from within the ship like this than to storm the place from the outside. Not to mention, thanks to his defeat, his power level is now 30,000. It's hard as a viewer not to feel excited about what he might do next when watching him pull off a feat as ballsy as this, and alone at that. Especially when Krillin and Gohan, who are given their power-ups and given a Dragon Ball rather than having to fight for these things, are having an objectively much less eventful and exciting time. They get points for saving Dende though. Love Dende. In fact, one of the most significant things Gohan and Krillin managed to do in this arc is simply show empathy for the Namekian people.
I've seen your mind. Your heart is pure and your intentions are true.
For instance, in the same episode as Vegeta's escape, Gohan finds the village that Vegeta slaughtered for that first Dragon Ball.
I swear you'll pay for this, Vegeta! You'll pay for what you've done!
Gohan's heartfelt reaction here successfully reminds us that while Vegeta is not the central villain anymore, he still is a villain in a wider context, or at the very least he's somebody still capable of villainous acts. Gohan takes time to give the villagers a proper burial, a rite that, interestingly, Goku will also grant to Vegeta at the end of the Frieza arc, further emphasizing the humanity the Z-Fighters represent. But what about Vegeta's humanity? The humanity vital to him ever becoming a believable member of the Z-Fighters himself. If we're ever to truly empathize with him and humanize him, we need to start to understand him in a wider social context rather than just as a self-serving individual. And the show does a great job of slowly establishing this. For example, despite his vanity, he repeatedly appeals to the strength of his people rather than always just referencing his own.
The first and last mistake you made was to underestimate the power of a Saiyan warrior. While so many others grow weaker during battle, we Saiyans become stronger. I promise you this, Frieza. Your downfall will be at the hands of a Saiyan.
Vegeta's Saiyan identity, evidently dearer than ever to him since learning that Frieza actually destroyed his planet, brings him confidence as he now chases Krillin, who's carrying Guru's Dragon Ball back to the hideout, despite the fact that he realizes he's being chased by Zarbon, who previously beat him to a pulp.
Well, let that freak follow me. He has no idea that defeating a Saiyan makes the Saiyan grow even stronger.
Moments like this reveal a pride which extends beyond selfish individualism. He is proud of his people and sees himself in the context of Saiyan society and Saiyan worth, despite the fact that there are only a tiny handful of his kind still alive. When we consider all of this, is it strange that he killed Nappa so readily back on Earth? Yes, maybe. But when it comes to a character as complicated as this, cognitive dissonance just comes with the territory, for Vegeta and also for us. Even the fact that he persists in referring to Goku as Kakarot in this arc and beyond highlights his passion for cultural preservation. Frieza, in contrast, is not portrayed as having any cultural ties whatsoever. He exists in himself and for himself as a pure villain. Vegeta's ties to his origins are explored with even more pathos when we learn how Frieza killed his father, and we're invited to imagine Vegeta in the context of something very human, a family. Moreover, a pivotal change starts to happen in his relationship with the Earthlings after he fights and beats Zarbon in front of Krillin and Bulma, who incidentally Zarbon would have killed without a second thought if Vegeta hadn't been there. To highlight his growing role as something standing between the Z-Fighters and the danger of Frieza, we even have this shot here where Vegeta is literally standing between Zarbon and Goku's friends. Even after Zarbon is out of the way, it's made clear that Vegeta is no longer really a mortal threat to our heroes, a pivotal step in the dismantling of his villain role. He does prevent them from leaving, but flies off with the ball without hurting them at all, feeling, in his own words, like being merciful now that he's got everything he needs. Or he thinks he does. The Dragon Ball hidden in the lake has actually been snagged by Gohan, who, as fate would have it, runs into Vegeta. What follows is a subtle yet significant moment in the humanization of Vegeta's character. Gohan manages to trick him by hiding the Dragon Ball behind a rock and pretending his radar is a watch, but he still has reason to believe he's in great danger here. Vegeta has a score to settle with the Sun family after all. He also assumes Krillin and Bulma have actually been killed by Vegeta, but Vegeta reassures him that they're unharmed. Vegeta suggests that he and Gohan team up, that the last remaining Saiyans should support each other. This of course is a trick, and Gohan is punished for falling for it with a knee to the gut. But Vegeta's motive for tricking Gohan is surprisingly neutral.
Go home. Go cry in the arms of your mother, little Saiyan. This is no place for a sniveling baby.
He says it in a cruel way, as is his habit and his persona, but the core message itself isn't without sympathy. You're just a child. Go home to your mother before you die an untimely death here. He may have been trying to be glib, talking about Saiyans sticking together and the like, but his choice to spare Gohan and simply give him some advice tells us there might have actually been some truth to it. As Vegeta spent his formative years being raised by somebody who only used him for violence and showed no humanity whatsoever, this is perhaps the only form his childhood lessons took as well. I don't want to pass around too many cookies here for not killing, but I do believe that this exchange with Gohan demonstrates that Vegeta is able to at least toy with behaving in a more empathetic manner, and maybe even let go of resentments. It was Gohan, after all, who landed the last huge crushing blow on Earth, falling on Vegeta while transformed and leaving him close to death. If Vegeta truly were bound by his grudge against the Earthlings in a villainous way, he would have exacted his revenge then and there. Regardless of how you interpret this interaction, one can't ignore the fact that he's been going around essentially obliterating everybody who wronged him. Then he's suddenly stopped, while Frieza has continued killing aimlessly. Right after this, however, Vegeta discovers his Dragon Ball has been stolen and puts two and two together.
When I find you, I'll kill you! You're dead!
I'd theorise that his extreme anger here is down to the fact that not only is his Dragon Ball gone, but he's now been betrayed by Gohan, towards whom he was merciful. Overall, this section is a really deft reminder to the viewer of just how fragile Vegeta's growing humanity, despite his strongly suggested capacity for change, actually is. In an instant, at the slightest betrayal, he reverts back to villain behaviour, and he is quickly consumed by blinding rage. Notice how even the design of his pupils here is altered to display this metaphorical blindness in a visual way. Vegeta fails to find Gohan, but doesn't give up hope. This particular close-up on his signature wry smile is there to reassure the viewer, don't worry, it's not over for Vegeta yet. And while simultaneously being happy for the Earthlings that they've gained a Dragon Ball, we don't want it to be over for Vegeta either. Even Krillin, acting as the audience's mouthpiece as he often does, can't help but be intrigued by Vegeta even though he's afraid of him.
That guy is like a bottomless pit. Somehow he keeps pulling out more and more power.
In Dragon Ball, desire for strength is a positive trait, and quests for power aren't exclusive to villains. They are actually a valid and celebrated aspect of self-actualization. It's around this time, in fact, that Goku starts training at 100 times gravity and is shown to be reveling in his newfound strength. All this paralleling, which is present in the anime more than in the manga, grows in frequency, arguably helping to prompt the viewer to think that Vegeta and Goku might actually be a good team to beat Frieza together. Them teaming up is somehow no longer that out of the question. Indeed, Vegeta's heated death threat to Gohan, who manages to get a power-up from Guru while Vegeta's looking for him, never comes to pass. Dende alerts everyone that a strong force is on the way, and it dawns on Vegeta that this is none other than the Ginyu Force, a special wing of the Frieza Empire. This is yet another pivotal moment in the dismantling of Vegeta's villain role, for we see him really panic for the first time since arriving on Namek.
Tell me where it is! Tell me and I promise no harm will come to you or your friends. But if I don't make my wish before they get here, we're all dead!
His loss of composure here is palpable, and in the following scene, his aloof persona continues to unravel.
Listen to me. Don't be a fool. It's the Ginyu Force. 5 men, each as strong as I am. Maybe even stronger. And in a few moments, they'll be here with their new scouters. They'll find us and kill us all. None of us are strong enough to face that. We only have one chance. We have to use the Dragon Balls to make me immortal.
His pleading tone here contrasts strongly with how he's spoken up until now. He's not trying to be clever, his tongue's not in his cheek, and he's not trying to dominate the situation for the sake of retribution, but survival. Appealing to their collective survival signals a big shift in his perspective that will become increasingly important as the arc develops. Selfishness must make way now for cooperation. He even argues practicalities.
The boy may have power, but he doesn't have the fighting experience. It has to be me.
And Nail seems to side with him, despite what Vegeta did to his people.
I fear what the Saiyan says may be true.
This small and missable interaction deftly reflects how Vegeta is being repositioned in the narrative. Indeed, this is the point in the story where he goes from a character whose success we're tentatively prompted to get excited about to someone with actual supporting protagonist potential.
This is crazy!
Just fly as fast as you can!
Vegeta's opposition to Frieza will no longer be merely incidentally beneficial to the Z Fighters. Instead, he will play an active role in solving this problem together with them. Having been reassured by Nail that this dragon can actually grant 3 wishes, they all have something to gain aside from simply defeating Frieza after all. Considering too the fact that we've seen Vegeta start to shift his language somewhat to stop addressing Krillin and Gohan as his enemies, this alliance doesn't even seem that out of the question. This first and pivotal attempt at alliance doesn't just challenge Vegeta, it challenges Krillin as well. Vegeta must consciously discard his obsession with stoic individualism, and Krillin has to set aside his very understandable fear of Vegeta despite his villainous past. When we finally meet the Ginyu Force, we're given a reminder of Vegeta's unpleasant life under Frieza.
Recover my Dragon Balls and bring me Vegeta.
Vegeta? Stupid Saiyan.
I always thought he was too cocky for his own good.
The fact that he's made a name for himself, even among these more exclusive members of Frieza's army, strongly illustrates his disdain for authority. And that daring, overconfident side of Vegeta is alive and well again now thanks to his cooperation with the Earthlings. Captain Ginyu searches for him on his scouter and remarks that he's making no effort to conceal his key. With his hubris in full swing again, thanks to the promise of immortality being closer than ever before, he's not interested in stealth at all despite being so afraid in the previous episode. Indeed, Vegeta's stoicism is revealed in this saga to be somewhat of a facade because he has arguably sharper emotional ups and downs than any other character, especially as the Frieza arc continues, making him feel increasingly complex and protagonist-like. Before Gohan, Krillin and Vegeta can make their wish, their opponents arrive.
Vegeta was right! There's no way we can beat all 5 of these guys! Their power levels, they're terrifying!
Krillin and Vegeta's reactions to this threat contrast strikingly despite the fact that they're objectively outnumbered, revealing a big difference in the way that they react to fear. While Krillin, the one with the established hero role in the narrative, is ready to admit defeat, Vegeta behaves heroically, standing firm and saying,
Don't get too cocky, Ginyu, you haven't beaten me yet!
He also tries to delay Ginyu practically by throwing away the Dragon Ball he's holding, one of his favourite problem-solving methods, and when this proves useless, he does something very interesting. He tells Krillin to actually destroy his Dragon Ball, demonstrating that he is actually capable of overcoming his hubris even, and letting go of the goal that's been driving him through the saga so far, his chance at immortality. He's proud enough to not appear afraid in front of the Ginyu Force, but humble enough to know his efforts will probably fail. Guldo prevents Krillin from destroying the ball and all looks hopeless, so much so that Krillin suggests just running away. But Vegeta won't give up, and is willing, despite his previous obsession with relying on no one but himself, to rely on teamwork to try and win.
We have no choice but to stand and fight. If we combine our powers, we might hold out long enough to discover some weakness we can exploit. It looks like you two will be fighting Guldo. You'll have to use your heads. A direct assault won't work. Stop! He's gone! Save your energy!
Vegeta displays the rallying persuasive skills of a shonen hero here, strategizing and taking charge of the situation when Krillin and Gohan can't summon the courage to do so themselves. Nevertheless, he is not Goku, just the next best thing. And that's the big tragedy of Vegeta, and sometimes the big joke. Despite all his potential and willpower, he can never quite be strong enough to provide a climactic victory as long as he exists in the same story as a hero like Goku. In fact, he even starts wishing in this scene that Goku would step in and save the day for him.
Didn't you say earlier that Kakarot was supposed to be coming here to save everybody?
Don't know about you, but he's coming to save Gohan and me.
I'm not trying to win a popularity contest here. All I'm saying is that we could use his help right now.
Is he, in outwardly hoping that Goku will show up, starting to subconsciously accept his position beneath Goku in the narrative hierarchy? Maybe, maybe not. But it certainly says a lot about Goku's heroic significance and transformative influence that even the proud Vegeta outwardly hopes for his arrival just as Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma do.
Goku, please hurry! We need you!
Vegeta's newfound glimmer of humility continues to reveal itself as he marvels at Krillin and Gohan's skills against Guldo.
Incredible! Their speed and power have increased exponentially since I fought them on Earth.
This kind of recognition of others' achievements would have been unthinkable for the more one-dimensionally arrogant Vegeta we met in the Saiyan saga. Furthermore, when it looks like, despite a valiant effort, they're about to be killed, Vegeta saves their lives. Something he will do again, actually, while fighting Frieza. Reverting to his characteristic aloofness, Vegeta does deny that this attack has anything to do with wanting Krillin and Gohan to live, but as he's essentially been treating them as equals, I'm not sure if we can believe him. Guldo accuses Vegeta of cheating, to which he argues,
There's no such thing as fair or unfair in battle. There is only victory, or in your case, defeat.
Vegeta's saving of Krillin and Gohan along with this comment successfully illustrates something important. While Vegeta's amorally victory-focused philosophy is cruel at times, it isn't inherently a bad thing in every scenario. It might, in fact, be something that the Z fighters and the show in general have been missing. Not to mention that Guldo's abusive language towards Vegeta here
You're nothing! Just a stupid monkey!
helps rally the viewer to be supportive of Vegeta's execution of Guldo as somewhat morally justified. Either way, Vegeta's style is a necessary piece of the puzzle if the story is to continue to raise the stakes with increasingly terrifying foes. This idea is further exemplified when Vegeta advises Goku later in the Frieza arc to temporarily set aside his humanity, as it's the only way to beat an evil such as Frieza.
Do it! You have to forget about your feelings. You have to. They'll get you killed. They'll get you killed, Kakarot.
Vegeta continues to be a grounding ally for Krillin and Gohan while they wait for Jace and Burter to decide who fights next.
Who knows? Maybe we'll get lucky, and they'll keep tying forever.
Well, maybe. I guess it doesn't hurt to have hope.
No, hope is a luxury none of us can afford.
Yet again, Krillin displays a more submissive reaction to danger than Vegeta does, but this isn't just part of his personality. It's a result of years spent knowing that everything will somehow turn out okay. After all, if you've spent so much time with a hero like Goku, hope comes easily. Conversely, Vegeta's stance, while darker, is a practical response to the fact that he's never had anyone to come and save him. Vegeta is scrappy to a fault in part because he's not grown up with a Goku to back him up, or indeed any positive masculine influence to look up to.
He took me from my father. It when I was just a little boy.
But more on that in part 2. Krillin, in contrast, can hope or give up as he pleases because he knows deep down it will all be fine. I talked earlier about Vegeta being given a more hero-like appearance on Namek compared to the shorter, scrawnier build he had back on Earth, when he was also often comically juxtaposed with the humongous Nappa. In this arc and beyond, he just takes up more space, not just narratively, but literally, and this physical change is evident here as Krillin, Gohan, and Vegeta square up to Recoome. For example, in this shot of them all standing still with Vegeta center frame, his shoulders and chest look remarkably wide. The positioning of the characters is important here too, with Gohan and Krillin blocked in front of Vegeta almost like they're working for him. It's a low angle shot as well, creating the illusion of him being a little taller than he actually is. And indeed, he gets off to a good start against Recoome, spinning him around like he weighs nothing and then hitting him with a large finishing blast.
He did it! Incredible. That big oaf never even saw it coming. I'm sure glad Vegeta's on our side.
Krillin, being excited to see Vegeta doing well here, invites us to do the same. In addition, Gohan cries out his name in concern when he takes a knee to the face, and the two of them cheer him on when it appears he's gaining momentum again.
Alright!
Seeing two of Goku's loved ones rooting for Vegeta, especially Krillin, whose hatred for him has remained understandably palpable until now, subtly gives the viewer permission to do so too, in case they were at all still on the fence. But alas, Vegeta soon finds himself exhausted and on the verge of defeat. The camera pans down Recoome's back, showing his crack, which is hilarious, but more importantly, his muscles. As Vegeta is so far away, and literally in a hole in the ground, he's small enough in the frame to fit between Recoome's legs, literally surrounded by his bulging thighs. This emasculating shot encourages us to feel sorry for our ersatz hero. When we first met Vegeta, his scrawnier appearance in spite of his strength meant his size made him stick out as a sort of physical oddity, appropriate visual language for a villain. But now we see his height manipulated in ways that prompt the viewer to have a more emotional reaction to his situation. And of course we get some of Vegeta's inner monologue in this fight as well, further reinforcing his increasingly protagonist-like role, which is now supported by Krillin and Gohan, two of the show's moral compasses in Goku's absence.
Damn it all. I knew from the outset that this battle would be difficult to win, but this is insane. I'm fighting at the limits of my ability, but he's just toying with me.
The audience's sympathy for Vegeta has now been engineered just the right amount for him to be saved by the Z-Fighters a second time. Recoome releases an impressive mouth blast that he cannot dodge, and Krillin and Gohan come to the rescue.
Hang on, Vegeta!
Judging from the area of effect and sheer power of the attack once it lands, we can assume they've saved Vegeta's life here. They've also essentially repaid their debt from when he saved their lives, lending a nice balance to their growing relationship.
You should have both used the opportunity to attack Recoome! Damn it! Do you really think he's going to let his guard down like that again?
Vegeta's anger at this is perplexing to Gohan, as saving people is Goku's prerogative. It's what they all do. But it makes sense to us when we consider his past. Vegeta is being treated like a hero, but being emotionally unprepared for the new narrative role he's evolving into, he doesn't know how to react like one. He doesn't know how to receive kindness, and that makes us sympathize with him even more. Even working together, Vegeta, Krillin, and Gohan are no match for Recoome, which sets the stage for Goku to arrive and garner some heroic glory. Crucially, he doesn't show up until all three of them are hopelessly out of action, particularly Gohan, who is battered beyond recognition. Goku's signature serene facial expression and the way he pays attention to the people on his side before even acknowledging his enemies is very powerful. He really is the ray of hope they held out for. The kindness Goku shows his friends when they fail, especially compared with what Vegeta did to Nappa back on Earth, reminds us of his morally peerless hero status. But it's not just his friends he lends a hand to. Goku actually gives Vegeta one of his limited supply of Senzu beans. As we established at the start of the video, humane actions come easily to Goku. Unlike Krillin and Vegeta, who have to consciously overcome their instincts in order to trust each other and work towards a greater good, Goku accepts Vegeta's role in the team immediately. It's one of the things which makes him a lot less interesting than Vegeta, while nevertheless enhancing his transcendent hero role. Upon eating the Senzu bean, Vegeta's muscles bulge uncontrollably, ripping apart his already tattered jumpsuit. Goku isn't just granting Vegeta a third chance at life, he's helping Vegeta in his transformation into a character with a hero's body, excessively masculine and reminiscent of Goku's own. Moreover, I think the fact that Vegeta looks like he's bursting at the seams here is a nice metaphor for him breaking out of the confines of his old self. It's significant, character development-wise, that he trusts Goku enough to eat the bean at all, considering the fact that the last time they met, they were enemies. Nevertheless, it's in this episode that Vegeta's competitive nature is provoked in a way that will haunt him for some time.
Impossible. I don't believe it. Is Kakarot a Super Saiyan?
Even before the Super Saiyan legend is specifically mentioned, we're made aware visually that Goku has achieved something significant in his training. This eyeline match between Goku and Recoome, for example, as they stare at each other, subtly portrays how much more of a match for Recoome Goku is than Vegeta was. They're both center frame, seen from the same angle, neither higher than the other, despite the fact that Recoome is physically a lot larger than Goku. Then we have him dominating the frame at an oblique angle, with Recoome looking rather puny in the background. There's a lot of focus in this episode on Goku's martial arts uniform rather than his face, which makes him feel sort of like a mythic presence rather than a person. He's now bearing his own kanji as well, which I like to believe is a nod to the self-actualization he's undergone training alone on the spaceship. On that note, I think the fact that Goku's clothes are pristine while Gohan, Vegeta's and Recoome's are in tatters just serves to further emphasize the aura of perfection and invulnerability that surrounds him here. Observing from the sidelines, Vegeta is able to sense a hidden power simmering under Goku's calm demeanor.
Those fools. They can't sense that Kakarot is hiding some of his fighting ability.
And sure enough, as Goku and Recoome continue to square up to each other, we see Goku show some of that Saiyan cockiness we've come to associate primarily with Vegeta.
Don't be so sure. You won't even lay a hand on me.
Vegeta, meanwhile, suddenly racked with inner turmoil, can feel his own confidence crumbling.
That was nothing more than a legend. I never actually believed it. There's no way a low class like Kakarot could achieve it. But if there were a way to achieve such power, I should know it. I am the Prince of all Saiyans. If there is to be a new Super Saiyan, it should be me.
I mentioned earlier that to Vegeta, power is the main denominator of general hierarchical importance. However, there is one other thing he cares about a great deal: born social class. Vegeta thinks he has a right to power because of his social ranking. After all, no number of years under Frieza can take away the fact that he was born a prince, and it really is a testament to his strength of character that he held on to this self-worth in spite of years of abuse. Goku is now a threat to that self-worth. Vegeta works very hard to get stronger and be master of his own destiny, that's true. However, a considerable portion of his pride comes from something more nebulous: an ascribed status that lost its tangible applications when Planet Vegeta was destroyed. Seeing a quote-unquote low-class warrior like Goku doing so well and garnering achieved status despite his origins undermines Vegeta's view that class makes him somehow inherently more important and worthy of power. Therefore, Goku doesn't just trump Vegeta physically, he poses an existential threat. Nevertheless, Vegeta can't help but marvel along with everybody else at Goku's speed and power as he finishes off Recoome in one hit.
With that one blow, Kakarot has proved himself stronger than any Saiyan I've ever known. Perhaps any Saiyan in 1,000 years.
We've seen Vegeta exact his revenge on 5 major players in the Frieza Force so far and successfully start to gain his independence from his past. We've also seen him go from main antagonist to supporting protagonist, working alongside Goku's son and best friend. Most pivotively, however, despite his obsession with being his own savior, Vegeta now has no choice but to swallow his pride even further and accept Goku's help, to watch Goku succeed where he and the others have failed. Thanks to Vegeta's significant character development and Goku's awe-inspiring power as a hero, Vegeta openly roots for him here.
Do it, Kakarot.
He doesn't want to just personally survive this, he wants to see Goku, a fellow Saiyan, succeed, at least on some level. If he were still being treated like a villain in the narrative, Vegeta's jealousy of Goku's increased power and assumed Super Saiyan status might have become all-consuming in this moment. He does remain envious of Goku in the following sagas and beyond, but it's not a pure jealousy. It's mixed in with curiosity, an interest in his own dignity, and genuine awe. As time goes on, he wrestles with these feelings rather than letting them overtake him, with some hiccups along the way a complex protagonist or anti-hero would. And this crucial moment of surrender at the close of the Namek Saga, as he watches Goku surpass him, lays the foundation for Vegeta's compelling vulnerability moving forward. While Vegeta still has a lot of growth to undergo in the Frieza arc, the Namek Saga charts a series of pivotal changes in his characteristics, his narrative position, his very design, and his relationships with others. These changes, organically subtle at times, come together to catalyze a seismic shift in his role, the evolution from antagonist to protagonist, a humanizing reframing of his character that has huge implications not just for him, but for the story as a whole moving forward. It's going to be a long, slow journey for him, but isn't that to be expected? He's around 30 on Namek, maybe late 20s, and therefore at a time in his life where his behaviours and attitude are pretty hardwired. Realistically, any progress he makes is going to be non-linear and it's going to be pretty messy. And indeed, this is more than just your usual A to B redemption arc. Perhaps Vegeta's redemption isn't a pushing aside of his villainous traits to make room for more likable ones, but an expanding of his character to accommodate those good traits. After all, the authentic conscious experience is a mixture of good and bad, selfishness and empathy, humility and pride. A struggle between what one wants and what one needs. And we do see Vegeta's more evil side fading here and there as it loses its utility for him. But again, the refinement of his character isn't a simple throwing away of things that don't fit the show's moral code. There is a sense that Vegeta's attitude, despite originating partially from a cruel upbringing, has its own valid uses. His harsh pragmatism and results-oriented approach to battle, which once made him a formidable villain, come to serve now as an effective counterbalance to the Z-Fighter's preference for mercy. Seeing him navigate becoming part of a friendly group after relying on staunch individualism for so long makes for compelling viewing, and I can't wait to discuss how this develops further in part 2. So hopefully I'll see you there. Thank you so much for watching. If you did, I know this was a long video. If you have any comments or questions, or if there's anything you'd particularly like me to talk about in part 2, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. But for now, I hope you all have a lovely day. Ciao!